Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. Again, my name is Jamara Cheek with College Recruiter. It's been my pleasure meeting all of you this day. Miss Jackie with the IRS, who is a longtime client of College Recruiters, asked before the break how to identify younger military veterans who are in school or recently graduating. I recently pulled some numbers for the Air Force Civilian Service, who is faced with that same challenge. College Recruiter has access to 610,000 veterans who are currently enrolled in higher education, colleges and universities in the United States. Of those, 308,000 are attending four-year universities. Of those, 74,000 are currently enrolled seniors at U.S. higher education institutions. If you want to reach college-educated veterans that are younger, currently enrolled, or recently graduating, that is available, contact me. Our next speaker is Colonel Adam Rocke, who is a 30-year career member of the United States Army. Oh, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. I had something prepared, but
You did great. So I guess I got to use the mic. I guess I got about 20 minutes. How about that? Better? Green light, go. Right? That's what a jump master would say. Green light, go. Right, Chris? So I've got about 20 minutes, okay? I'm not a college professor. Got a couple degrees, obviously, but I'm going to do what Secretary Coy is. I'm going to use the mic and walk around for a second. The first thing is thanks a lot for having me here, all of you. I'm going to introduce my team because we'll make this collaborative. I've got two great folks with me, Lieutenant Colonel Chris Payon. And the reason Chris is significant, not only because he's a very talented officer, but Chris is the employment director for the program I'm going to describe for you, all right? And he has the pipeline of that talent, frankly, that you're looking for. And I've got Ann Eisenberg here, who's our social media manager, for lack of a better term, but she's the brains behind this bunch of folks that I got, and she's really talented at what she does. And I'm glad to have him here. Secretary Coy said it. He is my partner in crime. The VA is, Department of Labor. There's quite a few of them. All these government agencies here really, I guess I haven't met you all, but you really are important to Chris and I and what the Chief of Staff of the Army is trying to do. So my name is Adam Rocke, and I am a soldier for life. What does that mean? First of all, I represent the Chief of Staff of the Army, General Ray Odierno, on a program that he devised just over 2 years ago. That's how long it's been. And someone, John, said he's been following us since our inception, and we appreciate that. So let's go back for just a second. This is not a history lesson. I said I'm not a professor, but what's important to understand is that what was formerly called ACAP, Army Career and Alumni Program. How many veterans do we have in this room? Right? How many Army veterans? Thank you all, veterans. Thank you all for your service. The Army veterans, you are now dubbed Soldiers for Life, by the way. Okay? But about 2 years ago, when the vow was signed, Veterans Opportunity to Work, it made ACAP, or TAP as you all know it, for DOD mandatory. With that, some significant changes. One of those changes is this office. General Odierno saw the need to connect our transitioning servicemen and women with successful reintegration when their time of service ended. Whether you're a first-termer, or you're a 30-year colonel, that's about all I'll let her get out of her mouth, 30-year colonel like myself, with opportunities out there. Multiple opportunities, and the opportunities that you all are trying to provide to find that talent that we think that we have. So what is Soldier for Life? We're about transition, we're about finding employment, health, and wellness, but we're also about a mindset, an identity of being once a soldier, always a soldier, or soldier for life. And that's important because it's a reciprocal commitment that you give back throughout your time of service. So with that mandatory TAP, we renamed ACAP now, Soldier for Life TAP, Transition Assistance Program. Some changes have come in place. And I tell you this just because I want you to understand how important this is to our senior military leaders. Yes, I wear the Army uniform, I speak for the Army, but when I go out and speak to HR managers and recruiters like yourself, I think you don't necessarily see an Army guy, you see a military person who understands the value of a vet and wants you to hire our veterans, men and women, servicewomen, retired veterans, and those family members. And I want to talk about the family members as I go through this today, because that's really important. Because I have a talent pool of soldiers. 86% of the Army is enlisted soldiers. The other 14%, if my math is right, is officers. Predominance of those obviously all have a college degree. Many of the enlisted soldiers have a college degree. You're here to recruit, I think, talent. Doesn't matter if they got a degree or not. You want that talent, and I've got that pipeline. Chris and I have that pipeline to that talent. Colonels don't usually flip slides, but I'll do that. So we have a campaign. It's called Soldier for Life. I talked a little bit about it here. We have a mission statement. That's how important this is. This mission statement. To connect government, community, and Army efforts. To help those transitioning servicemen and women, retired, and those families, those spouses, to meaningful employment when they exit the service. I got 4 lines of effort. The government one is here today. Community is important to me. Those grassroots connections, I want to harness those grassroots connections and connect them, you, to that pipeline of talent I talked about. I stand on 3 pillars. We're here to talk about employment and education today. I'm going to talk a little bit in a second about what's called the soldier life cycle and making our servicemen and women career ready. That is the end state. From the time they come in service to the time they leave, and they put a resume in whatever system it is, I say they're more career ready to enter your workforce now they serve in the military. And it's about retaining the all-volunteer force in the end of this. Mr. Coy did a great job. Talk about the talent. These are the values. I'll tap on a few of them here. Soldier attributes on the left-hand side. You understand it, so you wouldn't be here today. Decisive, confident, accountable, team-focused, effective communicators. We'll see if I am today. Multi-skilled leaders on the right-hand side. Builder of leader and teams. Understands cultural context. That could be because they've been fighting for the last 13 years in the global war on terrorism. Multiple tours of combat like Chris has. Been to Iraq and Afghanistan and other places and understands culture. Understands culture within the Army. Can harness that culture and apply that culture immediately to the culture of your organization. Bar none. Managing and leading change. Change happens routinely. Change happens routinely on the battlefield. I call warfighting controlled chaos. They can manage that. They've proven it, and you know that. And then skilled in government, statesmanship, and diplomacy, we did that. You heard the term the 3-block war, stability operations on one side, high-intensity conflict on the other, low-intensity conflict on the other side. They can do that. They're skilled at that. We have that talent. The Army has that talent. So let's talk about the pool of that talent. Secretary Coy talked about those numbers. Over the course of the next 5 years, the Army will transition approximately 120,000 servicemen and women out of the service for each year over the next 5 years. Oh, by the way, they come with a family. They come with a spouse who understands. It's good business to hire the military. It's probably even better business to hire their spouse. They get it. They've been taking care of that family. I've got a wife, I've got 4 kids. I know I don't look that old, right? One's in college. Yeah. So, and she understands. I've moved around over the course of the last 30 years, frankly. Haven't had kids that long. But over the last 18 or so years, I've moved around a lot. I've been deployed numerous times. My wife has been able to take care and raise those 4 children, move from place to place, pay the bills, take care of the car, all those things. She gets it. She's an example of what good business would be for a spouse, but there are hundreds of thousands of examples of that out there. The Army has, right now today, 508,000 servicemen and women in it. We've got 847,000 dependents. There's a large pool out there for you to get. I show this is a takeaway. I think Stephen has these handouts for you. You can have these handouts. I'm not asking you to read this. It's not an eye chart. But I want you to know that here's the duty description for the Army, occupational specialties, and the rank structures with them. The insignia on the left, the rank, and what they're capable of doing. And you'll have that. I think that's important that you use that as recruiters and HR managers and understand the pool of talent that you have. Continuing on comparison of the military to civilian positions there, our non-commissioned officers, commissioned officers and non-commissioned officers, they're managers. That's what they are. They can come into your organization immediately and manage. I talked about managing control chaos. Not that your office is chaotic, but they can manage that easily. Supply sergeants, our logisticians, they're managers of logistics. Our operations NCOs, non-commissioned officers, are supervisors already. Secretary Coy talked about that job description of that one individual, the first one that had to manage some sort of chaos, if you will, watching monitors, 911, computers. Every TOC, Tactical Operations Center in the Army, has non-commissioned officer supervisors that are doing that in the example I told you before, that control chaos in the heat of battle, frankly with bullets flying, managing that chaos. And our NCOs are charged with doing that. And they do a great job. So they're a perfect fit, and that's a great example that he gave. And our platoon sergeants, our young guys, they're probably 30 to 35 years old. Hard to imagine 20 to 50 personnel. So I think you get the point. So here's the crux of our soldier and family life cycle here. The Army, we've got phases in our operations. There are 4 phases in the soldier life cycle, and this is what is important. I talked about that end state of career ready. It starts when you enter the service. It starts in the very first phase. We call it starting strong. We work our way clockwise to serve, to reintegrate, and remain strong. I'll touch on a few because the end state is that talent pool that you were looking for, whether it be a serviceman or woman or their family member, spouse. We recruit from the top 29% of Americans. That means there's only 29% of 70 to 24-year-olds who are even eligible to come in the Army today. And of that 29%, only 360,000 are propense. That means they have a willingness, desire, meet all the qualifications to come in the Army. And our recruiting mission is about 120,000 or so. So I just told you that we are taking the best of the best amongst America. And they're going to start this journey on this life cycle here. First term, 1 term, or a career soldier, doesn't matter. And along the way, they're going to gain a few things. First of all, we're going to give them a skill set. We've got 145 occupational specialties. I have an infantry one, Chris, is a logistician. Along their path, they're going to get those intangible skills, those leadership qualities, those attributes in the previous slide or two I said they have. We've got PME, stands for Professional Military Education. We are lifelong learners, just as you are, just as you want to hire. Starts from the day they come in. We continue that education track in their skill set, primary skill set, and even secondary skill set throughout their career. I'm an infantry officer, but I did other things as well. Specialize in some security, specialize in nuclear, biological, and chemical. That is outside my occupational specialty, but the Army trained me. We do the same thing with our enlisted. Safety officer. Hazardous duty, non-commissioned officer. Those additional duties. Not only those tangible ones that they came into the military and trained on, those other skill sets. We're working very hard on CCLs, credentials, certifications, and licenses. and that is important to you as well. I know that. When you look at a resume, you're looking for their qualifications. Sometimes certifications, credentials really help. That could be the tiebreaker for what it takes to get them the job. I told you about those 145 occupational specialties we have. We've identified in the last 2 years 96 credentials throughout that. Low cost, as you know, credential. Looks good on a resume, but provides them a skill set necessary that hopefully you're looking for. Then I spent a lot of my time, Chris and I and my team, in the reintegration phase. We talked a little bit about TAP, Transition Assistance Program, and how it is mandatory. Secretary Coy talked about a 5-day curriculum that has Department of Labor, if you want to go on an employment track, has Veterans Affairs for continuing the employment in the education track, and an entrepreneur, which is the Small Business Administration. Anyone here from the SBA? And a host of others. But he said 5 days. But I'm here to tell you that transition starts early. It's not a 5-day event. It's a process that starts when they come in the Army throughout the whole life cycle of a soldier or family. I'm also here to tell you with the TAP being mandatory, we start the official TAP process 1 year out. And throughout that period, those 5 days are part of it. But we are preparing them to successfully reintegrate to the civilian sector and maybe into your companies, your organizations that you represent as early as a year, if you're a transitioning serviceman or woman. If you're a retiree like me, at some point, I get 2 years to begin that transition. That's pretty significant, because now they can really dedicate their time to preparing themselves, to preparing your resume that's right for your organization, learning how to dress, wear a suit, their interview skills, their networking. They should start that much earlier, but it's not just those 5 days we talked about. And then remaining strong. That's where I'm an advocate for what I talked about, our moniker of the Soldier for Life and identity. That you go out to those communities, you land a successful and meaningful job. They served our nation proudly for 13 years and more. We want them to land successfully. I call it right side of DD-214 to a smooth takeoff. Smooth takeoff, Anna. Hand and arm signal. So that they find pay parity. Something meaningful for them and their families to sustain the standard of living that they got that was relatively commensurate to the one that they had in the military. Because military service is an honor. And it's good, and it's actually fun, as you all know. But leaving the service can be daunting, but it can be fun too. You're all having fun here. So remaining strong, critical phase of that. Secretary Coy talked about the VEC, the Veterans Employment Center. I'm an advocate for the VEC, not only because the First and Second Lady said that the VEC is there, but it works. And I encourage you all to put your commitments, as he said, on the VEC. I encourage you all to look for those profiles of those servicemen and women, those families that we're asking to create a profile. It's no lie, it's early at its inception, but it has the capacity to do a lot more. It has that 1.7 million jobs that hopefully your jobs are on there that we're directing our troops to. So I'm asking all the employers, put a commitment on there. Put your profile on there. Find that talent, because we're telling our talent within the service to create a profile there. There are other tools out there, but that's an individual preference to use the one that works for he or she. But the VEC is the tool. We've got to make it work for us. You can see Secretary Coy talked about the website. I put it here for your reference as well, if you're interested in writing that down. We do get to the VEC site through the e-benefits. E-benefits, by the way, is mandatory. It's mandatory for the transitioning service members to create an e-benefits account. From there are links to the tab for the VAC. We're asking you to join us in this conversation. You already are today, by allowing me to speak to you. I appreciate it. But we also have a Facebook, Anna, a Twitter, Anna, and a website. That's Anna. All right? She helps us out on all this. But this is important. I know John said he's been following us for a while. We've got a website. I'm not saying it's all perfect. We're new. We've only been doing this for a short bit. But that is where you can go find a lot of information. That's where you can stay connected with us, stay connected with Chris. Chris has got a great site on there on the Employment Center for the Soda for Life, and it has your links, and we're prepared to put your information on there to get the word out. And we're going to talk about that in a second, about how you can be involved and join this conversation a little bit more. But there are opportunities for you to connect with the pipeline of folks that we got, more so than just TAP. So some takeaways. I talked about the talent that we have. They're veterans. They're veterans in more ways than one. I talked in length about the spouses. I use my wife and my family as an example of that. With those young kids who serve, many of them married, have children, have car payment, house payment, managing a checkbook, have been to combat, have to get up early, run physical fitness, come home late, work on weekends, go deployed. They're resilient. I think they have a lot more skill set, frankly, than young men or women just coming directly out of college, to be honest with you. So I'd ask that you consider that talent. Take that into consideration when you look at those resumes that we talked about. We can help spread your message. As I indicated before, if you're having a job fair, you're having some sort of summit, some sort of engagement, we can help. If it benefits a veteran, then we can help. We'd be part of your conversation. The VAC, I talked about it before. We'll talk a minute about installations. One of the biggest things I hear is access. So how do we get access? We had a small conversation about access before. There are quite a few ways, and I'll ask Chris to step up and help me out if there are additional opportunities you think of. But first of all, the VAC is one that provides you immediate access. Who's heard about these hiring summits that we've done on the Army installations and across America? So there's a partnership we have with the VA, Department of Labor, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce with the Army Soda Flag program. Over the course of the next 2 years, there's 35 cities that they're partnered with. There are 20 installations that they're coming to, Army installations that we benefit. That's that pipeline of talent you're looking for. Those enlisted and those officers that are in the transition window that want to meet you, that you have an opportunity to meet and tell them about why they should come work for you. We offer that to you. That list is on our website. All you have to do, assuming Chris, is go to the employment tab and you'll find that list, the locations and the dates of those. So we'd like you to be part of the conversation. Additional ways, TAP, Transition Assistance Program. There are 74 installations, brick and mortar TAP centers. There's one virtual site 24/7. You can get to that site through my website. I'd ask you to take a look at that. Take a look at that and see where you might fit in. If you're looking for access to the soldiers at the TAP centers, as we discussed before, connect with Chris and I in my office. We'll work through it. We'll make it happen. If you have jobs out there and you want to talk face-to-face with some soldiers or the families, we'll make that happen. That's important. Chris, some other ways? Connect?
No, sir, I think you've hit a lot of them. I think what we want to emphasize too, not just for employment opportunities, but many of organizations and agencies here have got a lot of training opportunities that will capitalize on that credentialing, that licensing, that certification. Thank you. So I think that's a great way, sir. I think there's a real opportunity to get the federal sector sort of together and have this type of discussion amongst the joint environment too. So we come here to represent and talk about Army initiatives, over talk in terms of scope of all veterans and our connections to the joint community as well.
You know, that's a good point. Chris talked about this hiring, I talked about the hiring summit. I mean, there's an opportunity to put our heads together here, create our own summit with federal agencies that were represented here today and some of the others are not, to that talent pool here in the NCR. We have the capacity, the capability to kind of help. And that could get expanded if you wanted to. So in closing here, and I'll open up for some questions here, we're real proud of what the Chief's vision is and the Secretary of the Army. We're real proud of the direction that we've come. We're not even close to being complete yet. This is a long journey, all right? We'll always transition. Doesn't matter whether it's drawdown or not, our numbers, as Secretary Floyd, just seem to be spiked a little bit higher than they normally are right now, but we'll work through that, and we are. There are some positive things coming out of this. Unemployment for veterans is coming down. You saw those. Unemployment for that vulnerable population, 18 to 24 years old, is coming down. It is higher than we want it to be. But that's the talent you're looking for. I just explained to you why it's good business. You know that. You wouldn't be here today. By the way, they have that GI Bill you talked about. We encourage that use of the GI Bill. Don't have to be a full-time student at a traditional site all day long. They can work for you and work at night. Just as my wife is going to night school online right now. Those are examples of how we work through it. So there are multiple ways that I think this talent works for you. Again, I don't just speak for the Army, just hire a veteran. Doesn't matter what suit they're wearing. Question?
Yes, sir. We hear, I think, over half of the
Microphone.
Over half of our new federal hires in the federal workforce are veterans. And I know the article that Kuwait had held up in the Economist, the percentage is about 31% are departing. I can't think of a better program that speaks to retention as perhaps getting your interns, your employee affinity groups involved. Would you work with, like for instance in my company, our veterans that are employees, could they get involved in volunteer? Are there volunteer opportunities as well as employment and training?
Sure. So let's talk about some J-test AI, the DoD's instruction, job training, employment shadowing, apprenticeships, and internships that was recently published earlier this year. The Army has its own policy. We call that Career Skills Program. That's basically what you're talking about. What it's given us the ability is for a commander to allow a transitioning service member 180 days out from their transition to be part of an organization. And we're working through the private sector now and some of the other things, but clearly in this office right here, we can do that now with the government services that are represented here, to let them intern with you, right? Learn that skill set. All we're asking is that you give them an opportunity or an interview at the completion of that for potential hire. They recognize that there's no guarantee to hire that, but we're working through that and we have the capability to do that now. And that is a positive thing, and that's what we call it a recruiting tool. That is a recruiting tool. Can I ask one more thing? John and I talked about it. PAYS. It's called Partnership for Youth Success. Has anyone heard of that? There's a couple here, but not enough. I ask you to please go to my website to look at the information that Chris has put on there about the PAYS program. It's an Army program right there. There's over 500 companies, to include federal agencies, that are registered in that PAYS program. First of all, what that really is a mentorship program. A mentorship program throughout the life cycle of a serviceman or woman is when the recruiting tool, so when they come in, multiple, Coca-Cola is one of them, I'll just give you that example. And they assign a mentor to a person, all right, to that recruit. And throughout their life cycle, interactions. And all that company is affording them is an opportunity to interview at the end of it. No guarantee of a hire. But you're showing your commitment to hire veterans, you're mentoring veterans, and hopefully at the end of it, you're hiring them, but you don't have to. So that's a great tool. Thanks for reminding me, John. Yes, ma'am.
Once the agency hires a veteran, what kind of things can we do to make sure that they're adjusting well, because we want them to be successful? What can the agency do? I know that you all have things, the VA has different things they do, but what can the agency do to help ensure?
Sure, I think what's really important is the onboarding, all right? Onboarding is important. Now, I've asked if you have any veterans affinity groups. Do you already have them established in your organizations now? Could you show me? I see. So there's a series of hands. We have determined through best practices that those veteran affinity groups really do work. They help the onboarding process. They inculcate them very well into the organization. And frankly, it helps retention for that company. It helps them feel like they're around the culture of some of the things that I talked about. Did I miss something? Oh, okay.
We don't have that.
Right. You know, we have some training on our website. There are some great examples on that right there. And I keep saying Chris, but Chris has done a fabulous job posting those things. Chris has his hand up. He wants to amplify a point, please.
No, that's good. Yep. So that's a great, so to piggyback on John's initial question and then your follow-up, I think that the first thing is we're looking for veterans to identify. So if they don't self-identify, especially in the private sector, it's a little bit harder to tell their story and communicate with them. This sort of population is unique because you've got already sort of the veteran hiring preferences. So you have a good idea who's going to be onboarding as a new hire, and you have a pretty good sense, I think, of the veterans within your organization. But let's highlight them in terms of success stories. Help them come back and tell the Army story. And we could be as much a part of that as your team is and those veterans within your organization. So I'd offer that up. Help us sort of identify those success stories, let us amplify them, and then I think that's a natural resource. And then getting back to the onboarding comment, certainly.
You know, she has her hand up. We're going to go. I want to amplify one of the initiatives Chris has led for me, though. We call it the Fusion Cell. And that Fusion Cell really is a bunch of key stakeholders. And here's why this is important, because we're probably the only one doing that within the interagency. He's got all a bunch of folks that are involved in that. And that helps amplify some of these best practices we're talking about. It helps amplify some of these success stories as well. So I encourage you really to connect with us and Chris. And even if you just listen to some of the conversation that goes on within that diffusion, so I think you'll get a lot of takeaways from that. I'm sorry, yes ma'am.
I just have a resource that I wanted to share. I work for the Department of Veteran Affairs in the Veteran Employment Service Office, we call VSO, has a Veterans as Mentors guide that is available to you, so you may want to use that as a practice as an employee resource group, and it has just kind of those things, those onboarding and things that you can do to help adjust those veterans during the onboarding process.
That's a good resource. Any other questions? Well, again, thank you very much. Thanks for what you're doing. Continue to hire those veterans, stay connected with us, and have a good day.